The Xandarian embassy on Earth was, quite possibly, the most bizarre architectural achievement in the known galaxy, not because of its design, which was actually quite sophisticated, but because it was sandwiched between a McDonald's and a discount tire shop in suburban New Jersey. Ambassador Xylax insisted this was perfectly fine, though his eye stalks twitched violently whenever he had to explain to visiting dignitaries why their transport pods were being pelted with the aromatic waves of French fries and rubber. Darling Lady Vena's crystalline voice chimed through their private quarters, her iridescent scales shifting from their usual calm blue to a worried purple. "Have you seen Crix? He was supposed to be practicing his human studies with his tutor." Ambassador Xylax, who was in the middle of drafting his 37th complaint about the golden arches next door, this one specifically about how the sign's brightness was interfering with their photosynthesis cycles, barely looked up. He's probably just hiding in the ventilation system again. You know how he gets when Mr. Blorp tries to make him memorize Earth's ridiculous number of national anthems. "No, Xylax, you don't understand." Vena's voice rose an octave, causing several crystal glasses in the room to vibrate dangerously. "I've already checked the vents, and the quantum storage units, and that weird space between dimensions where he likes to do his homework. He's not anywhere in the embassy." Now Xylax's attention was caught. His eye stalks snapped up so quickly they almost tied themselves in a knot. "Computer, locate Cricks." The embassy's AI responded in its usual monotone. "Young Master Cricks's biosignature is not currently detectable within embassy grounds. Last recorded location: main entrance, approximately 4.3 Earth hours ago." What both parents screeched in perfect harmony, causing every piece of glass within a 50-foot radius to shatter. Xylax's scales turned an alarming shade of chartreuse. He's out there, among the humans, alone, with their primitive technology and their processed food and their TikTok. "Don't forget their cats," the computer helpfully added. "Humans are quite fond of cats." Not helping, Vena shouted, already activating the embassy's emergency protocols. Red lights began flashing, and a siren that sounded suspiciously like Earth's ice cream trucks, another story entirely, started wailing through the building. Within minutes, the embassy was in chaos. Junior diplomats were sliding down the gravity tubes in panic, the cultural attach with stress molting all over the ceremonial carpet, and Mr. Blorp, Cricks's tutor, had accidentally turned himself inside out, a common stress response for his species. "Contact Earth authorities immediately," Xylax commanded, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity while simultaneously preventing his eye stalks from tying themselves into an anxiety pretzel. "And someone please turn off that infernal siren. We're trying to find my son, not sell frozen dairy products." As the embassy staff scrambled to organize a search party, Vena paced the floor, leaving slight scorch marks with each step, another stress response, though this one significantly more hazardous to the flooring budget. Oh, what if he's lost? What if he's scared? What if he's being forced to watch their television commercials? "Now, darling." Xylax attempted to comfort her, though his own scales were cycling through colors faster than a malfunctioning disco ball. "Let's not imagine the worst. He's a bright boy. He's had all his vaccinations against Earth's memes and pop culture. He knows not to accept candy from strangers unless they've been properly scanned for artificial preservatives." But deep down, both parents knew the truth. Their 8-year-old son was somewhere out there in the vast, chaotic expanse of human civilization. A civilization that still thought putting pineapple on pizza was an acceptable practice and considered emoji a valid form of communication. This was going to be a very, very long day. Local police chief Luna Martinez had seen many strange things during her 15 years on the force. But nothing quite prepared her for the sight of two extremely agitated aliens attempting to file a missing persons report while hovering 3 feet off the ground in her precinct. "So, let me get this straight," Luna said, trying to maintain her professional composure as Ambassador Xylax's eye stalks kept accidentally knocking over her coffee cup. "Your son has been missing for approximately 5 hours, and the last thing he was studying before his disappearance was human heroics." "Yes, yes," Lady Vena chimed in, her scales now flashing like a distressed disco ball. "It was part of his Earth Studies curriculum. Mr. Blorp was teaching him about your species' peculiar habit of running toward danger instead of away from it, like any sensible being would do." Luna typed carefully into her computer, grateful for the mandatory interplanetary relations training she'd been required to take last spring, And you said he's 8 years old. Any distinguishing features we should be aware of? Oh, just the usual. Xylax waved a tentacle dismissively. 3 eye stalks, chromatic scales, quantum probability manipulation glands, though I should mention he's currently in his human disguise protocol. He'll look like one of your younglings, except he tends to forget that human children can't hover or phase through solid matter. Right, Luna muttered, already dreading the paperwork this case would generate. And you're sure he's not just, what did you call it, quantum tunneling somewhere in the embassy? We've checked every quantum state and parallel dimension within embassy grounds, Venna assured her, accidentally activating her bioluminescence in distress and temporarily blinding several nearby officers. Just then, Captain Blake Reynolds from Earth's Interplanetary Liaison Office burst through the door, looking slightly out of breath and clutching what appeared to be a translator device and a box of donuts. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible, and then I had to stop by that one donut shop the ambassador likes, you know, the one that makes them with the edible glitter. Xylax's eye stalks perked up noticeably at the sight of the donuts, but Venna shot him a look that clearly said, "Not now, dear. Our son is missing, and this is not the time for your earth sugar addiction." Captain Reynolds. Luna nodded gratefully. Perhaps you can help us coordinate this search more effectively. We need to cover as much ground as possible without causing a panic among the civilian population. About that, Blake said, pulling out a tablet. We've already got reports coming in from various locations. A confused-looking child asking strangers about their acts of bravery, a boy seemingly floating an inch off the ground at a crosswalk, and someone claiming they saw a kid turn briefly transparent while trying to pet a police horse. That's our Cricks, both parents exclaimed simultaneously, causing every electronic device in the room to temporarily malfunction. Great, Luna sighed, resetting her computer. So he's wandering around asking random humans about heroics, occasionally forgetting his disguise protocols, and probably violating several laws of physics in the process. Any other relevant information we should know? Well, Xylax cleared his throat, or what passed for a throat in his species. He does have a slight tendency to what's your Earth phrase fanboy over dramatic displays of courage, and he may or may not have recently developed an obsession with your emergency response vehicles. The sirens seem to resonate with his crystalline structure. Wonderful, Luna muttered, reaching for her radio. All units, be on the lookout for a child who may or may not be floating, turning transparent, or asking about heroic deeds. Approach with caution and, maybe bring donuts. As they organized search parties and set up a command center, Luna couldn't help but notice how the alien parents' anxiety manifested in increasingly bizarre ways. Lady Venna had started unconsciously generating small temporal distortions, causing several officers to experience Tuesday twice. While Ambassador Xylax's stress-induced color changes had attracted a small crowd of fascinated teenagers who thought they were witnessing some kind of impromptu light show. I don't understand, Venna fretted, pacing along the ceiling. Apparently gravity was optional when stressed. We warned him about all the dangerous things on Earth, the social media, the reality TV shows, the processed cheese products. What could have possibly lured him away? Blake awkwardly patted her shoulder, or what he hoped was her shoulder. Alien anatomy was tricky. Don't worry, we'll find him. Though I have to ask, did you perhaps warn him about too many things? Sometimes telling kids everything is dangerous just makes them more curious. Both parents froze, causing several temporal anomalies to suddenly resolve themselves. The look they exchanged suggested that this possibility hadn't occurred to their advanced alien minds. You mean, Xylax said slowly, his eye stalks drooping, our comprehensive 2,847-page guide on Earth hazards and how to avoid them might have actually served as more of a what do you humans call it, a bucket list. Luna buried her face in her hands, wondering if it was too late to transfer to a nice, quiet desk job. Somewhere without aliens, preferably. Or donuts. Definitely without floating children who could quantum tunnel through walls. The search for young Crix was proving to be anything but ordinary, though, on Earth. As his parents were learning, extraordinary seemed to be the daily special. The search party's first real break came from, of all places, a hot dog vendor in the small town of Millbrook, just 20 minutes from the embassy. The vendor, one Joey the Hot Dog King Russo, called the tip line after seeing the Amber Alert that described a possibly floating child with an unusual interest in heroics. Yeah, strangest thing Joey told Captain Blake Reynolds while gesturing with a half-eaten hot dog. This kid comes up, totally normal looking, except he's kind of hovering. Asks me if I've ever done anything brave. Told him about the time I fought off a raccoon that was trying to steal my hot dogs. Kid looked disappointed, but bought 3 hot dogs with something that looked like glowing purple crystals. Luna Martinez pinched the bridge of her nose. You accepted alien currency from a floating child. Lady, this is New Jersey. Long as it ain't counterfeit, we don't ask questions. Ambassador Xylax, who had been stress-shedding sparkles all over the hot dog cart, suddenly perked up. Did you say purple crystals? Those are his allowance crystals. We can track those. You can track his allowance, Blake asked, raising an eyebrow. Of course, Lady Venna chimed in, her scales rippling with renewed hope. What kind of parents would we be if we didn't put quantum tracking nanites in our child's pocket money? Luna decided not to comment on alien parenting techniques. Okay, so can you locate these crystals now? Xylax pulled out what looked like a smartphone crossed with a lava lamp and began waving it around. The device emitted a series of musical notes that sounded suspiciously like the theme from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Very funny, dear Venna said, shooting her husband a look. Did you really have to program it with that Earth movie soundtrack? I thought it was culturally appropriate, Xylax protested, his eye stalks drooping defensively. The device led them through the town's winding streets, past a surprised group of skateboarders who barely blinked at the alien parents again, New Jersey, and toward the more residential area of Millbrook. With each step, more evidence of Crix's passage emerged. A librarian reported a child asking for books about Earth heroes who don't wear capes or have radioactive spider bites. A crossing guard mentioned a boy who seemed very excited about her stopping traffic to help kids cross the street. A local deli owner described a youngster who became absolutely entranced by a TV news report about a recent rescue. Notice a pattern, Blake asked, flipping through his notes. He's not just randomly wandering. He's specifically seeking out information about everyday heroes. But why? Venna fretted, accidentally creating a small temporal eddy that caused several parking meters to expire prematurely. We have heroes on Xandar. We have an entire hall dedicated to beings who've discovered revolutionary quantum equations. Luna and Blake exchanged a knowing look. Mom, Luna said gently, I think your son might be interested in a different kind of hero. Their conversation was interrupted by Xylax's tracking device suddenly blaring the Indiana Jones theme song at full volume. It's picked up a stronger signal, he announced excitedly. He's somewhere in this neighborhood. As they rounded a corner, they came upon a scene that made the alien parents' scales flash in every color of the visible spectrum and several that weren't. A crowd had gathered around a small house, where smoke was billowing from an upstairs window. Fire trucks were already on the scene, their lights painting the street in red and white. And there, at the edge of the crowd, hovering ever so slightly off the ground in his excitement, was a small boy whose human disguise was flickering just enough to show glimpses of iridescent scales underneath. Crix, his parents shouted in unison, causing every car alarm in a 1-block radius to go off. But Crix didn't even notice them. His attention was completely focused on the scene before them, his 3 eye stalks now visible to anyone looking closely wide with wonder as firefighters efficiently worked to contain the blaze. One firefighter in particular seemed to have captured his attention, a woman who had just emerged from the building, carrying both a scared elderly resident and, of all things, a terrified cat. Did you see that? They heard Crix whisper to a nearby bystander, his voice filled with awe. She just ran into danger. On purpose. To help complete strangers. And she didn't even stop to calculate the quantum probability matrices first. The bystander, to his credit, just nodded sagely. That's Mira Patel for you. Been with the department for 10 years. She's got more rescues under her belt than I can count. Crix's eyes grew even wider, if that was possible. She does this regularly. Running into burning buildings? Saving humans and their domesticated felines? Without even having enhanced abilities or protective force fields. Well, she has protective gear, the bystander chuckled. But yeah, that's kind of the job. The alien child's expression was one of pure revelation, as if he'd just discovered the meaning of life itself. His parents, watching from a few yards away, recognized that look. It was the same expression Xylax got when discovering a new type of Earth donut, or Venna when finding a particularly elegant mathematical proof. Your son had found his hero. And she wasn't anything like the heroes they had back home. Fire Captain Mira Patel had been having what she'd call a perfectly normal Tuesday until she noticed a slightly translucent child following her around the fire station. At first she thought the translucency was just a trick of the light, or maybe fatigue from her last 24-hour shift. But after the third time she caught him peeking around corners while hovering 2 inches off the ground, she had to admit this wasn't your typical station visit. "Hey there, buddy," she called out gently, trying not to startle him as she finished checking her equipment. "Want to see the fire truck up close?" The boy materialized fully, mostly though his skin still had an odd, shimmering quality to it. "You're Mira Patel," he stated with the kind of reverence usually reserved for superheroes or pizza delivery drivers. "You ran into a burning building exactly 3 days, 7 hours, and 23 minutes ago to save a human elder and their feline companion." Mira blinked. "That's very specific. Were you there?" "Oh yes, I was watching from my quantum observation point near the hot dog vendor. I've been studying you ever since. Did you know you've responded to approximately 127 emergency calls in the past month alone? That's an average of 4.23 heroic acts per day." "I wouldn't call them all heroic," Mira chuckled, starting to suspect this wasn't an ordinary kid. The way he kept accidentally floating was a bit of a giveaway. Most of them are just helping people who are having a bad day. "But that's exactly what makes it so fascinating," the boy exclaimed, his excitement causing him to briefly phase through a nearby chair. "You help people without calculating the personal benefit ratios, without conducting risk assessment algorithms, without even checking if they have sufficient social credit scores." "Aha," Mira nodded, deciding to roll with it. After all, she'd seen stranger things in her career. Like that time someone called 911 because their toaster was possessed. Turned out it was just a really persistent squirrel. "And you are?" "Oh, I'm Crix." He attempted what he clearly thought was a normal human handshake, his hand passing through hers twice before finally becoming solid enough to grasp. "I'm from the Xandarian embassy." "Well, technically I'm supposed to be at the embassy right now. Actually, technically I'm supposed to be studying human social structures with Mr. Blorp." But he was focusing on boring things like your monetary systems and political hierarchies instead of the really important stuff. The important stuff being how you save people. Crix's eyes, all three of them, though he quickly remembered to hide the third, were shining with enthusiasm. Back home, our heroes are beings who make revolutionary discoveries in quantum mechanics or achieve perfect efficiency in resource allocation. But you just help people because they need help. Mira felt something warm in her chest that had nothing to do with her fireproof gear. That's what being a firefighter is all about, kid. Sometimes people need help, so we help them. Simple as that. But it's not simple at all. Crix was practically vibrating with excitement now, causing nearby tools to rattle slightly. Take last week's incident at the shopping center. When the structural integrity was compromised, you determined the optimal rescue route in mere seconds, without any quantum computers, just using what you call gut instinct and experience. Mira had to smile. She remembered that call, a small electrical fire in a mall that had thankfully been contained quickly. "Been watching me for a while, huh?" "Oh yes. I've compiled a complete database of your rescue operations dating back 3 months. Would you like to see my probability matrices? I've color-coded them." Before Mira could respond, a commotion at the station entrance caught their attention. 2 very agitated aliens in human disguises, though their disguises were slipping quite badly in their distress, burst in, followed by a harried-looking police chief and a man carrying what appeared to be a glowing donut. Crix, the female alien, called out, her voice causing several windows to vibrate. "Do you have any idea how worried we've been?" "Mom." Dad. Crix lit up, literally his scales becoming visible as his excitement overwhelmed his disguise protocols. "You have to meet Mira Patel. She's a real human hero. She runs into dangerous situations approximately 4.23 times per day, without even having backup quantum probability shields." Mira watched with growing amusement as the boy's parents exchanged looks that were universal across species, that mixture of relief, exasperation, and resigned acceptance that their child had found a new obsession. "I see you've been quite the inspiration," Police Chief Martinez said quietly to Mira, trying not to interrupt the family reunion happening in front of them. Though I have to ask, how are you so calm about all this? Mira shrugged, watching as Crix enthusiastically showed his parents his color-coded charts of her rescue operations. Chief, I once had to rescue a python from a ceiling fan while its owner tried to charm it down with a kazoo. After that, a floating alien kid who's a fan of firefighting? Just another Tuesday in Millbrook. The truth was, as Mira watched Crix excitedly explain to his bewildered parents about human emergency services, she felt oddly touched. She'd never thought of herself as a hero. She was just doing her job, helping people who needed help. But seeing it through this alien child's eyes, understanding how remarkable it seemed to a culture that calculated everything well, maybe there was something kind of special about human heroes after all. Ambassador Xylax and Lady Venna stood in the fire station. Their human disguises now completely forgotten, watching their son bounce around Mira Patel like an excited electron around an atomic nucleus. Chief Martinez had wisely decided to put the station on temporary lockdown to prevent any curious onlookers from witnessing what appeared to be a family of color-changing, floating aliens getting a personal tour of the fire trucks. And this, Crix exclaimed, pointing to a seemingly ordinary fire hose, is a primitive but ingenious water propulsion device. No quantum manipulation, no molecular restructuring, just pure water pressure and human ingenuity. That's nice, dear Venna said weakly, her scales cycling through various shades of confusion. But perhaps we should discuss why you left the embassy without permission. Oh, Crix's enthusiasm dimmed slightly, causing him to sink a few inches closer to the ground. I know I should have asked, but after I saw Mira save those people from the fire, I just had to learn more. Did you know humans run toward danger? On purpose? Without calculating success probability matrices? Yes, we've noticed that disturbing tendency, Xylax muttered, then yelped as Captain Blake Reynolds elbowed him in the midsection. Mira, who had been watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement, stepped forward. Maybe I can help explain. See, when we hear someone's in trouble, we don't think about probabilities or calculations. We think about the people who need help. But that's so. Venna struggled to find the word. Inefficient, Xylax suggested. Human, Crix said with something like awe. Look, Mira continued, grabbing her helmet, let me show you something. She walked over to the wall covered in photographs. Every picture here represents someone we helped. Not because we calculated it was the optimal course of action, but because it was the right thing to do. The alien family drifted closer, their eye stalks swiveling to take in the images. Photos showed firefighters carrying children from burning buildings, rescuing pets from trees, helping elderly residents during floods, and even a few lighter moments, the crew covered in mud after rescuing a dog from a drainage ditch, or covered in foam after a spectacularly backfired training exercise. But how do you know? Venna asked, genuinely puzzled. How do you know it's worth the risk? Worth the risk, Mira laughed. Mom, with all due respect, that's not how we think about it. When someone needs help, we help. That's it. That's the whole equation. Actually. Crix piped up, pulling out what looked like a glowing tablet. I've been working on quantifying the human heroic response. According to my observations, the average human first responder makes approximately 6.7 split-second decisions per emergency. Operates with a surprisingly consistent moral compass despite varying cultural backgrounds, and exhibits a fascinating disregard for personal safety when others are in danger. The adults, human and alien alike, stared at the excited child. And that's good? Xylax asked hesitantly. It's amazing, Crix exclaimed, accidentally phasing through a nearby table in his excitement. They're not bound by probability matrices or efficiency algorithms. They just help. Like last week, when Mira and her team responded to a call about a stuck hover vehicle. Honey, Venna corrected automatically. They call them cars here. Right, car. They spent 3 hours helping an elderly human change something called a flat tire in the rain. The efficiency rating for such an operation would be terrible by Xandarian standards, but they did it anyway, because the human needed help. Mira watched as understanding slowly dawned in the alien parents' eyes. Their scales shifted to a softer, more contemplative hue. You know, Blake chimed in, still holding his now cold coffee. Maybe this is exactly the kind of cultural exchange we need. Not just trading technology or knowledge, but understanding different ways of approaching life. Different ways of being heroes, Luna added with a smile. Xylax's eye stalks twisted thoughtfully. Perhaps we've been calculating the wrong variables all along. On Xandar, we measure success in efficiency, in probability, in perfect execution of complex theories. But here Venna continued, her scales shimmering with dawning comprehension. Success is measured in lives touched, in moments of connection, in the simple act of helping without expectation of return. Exactly, Crix beamed, pulling out more of his observation charts. And did you know they have a whole system of emergency response vehicles with different colors and sounds? Each with their own specific function, but all dedicated to helping humans in need. Can we get a siren for our quantum pod, please? I promise to only use it for actual emergencies and not just to annoy Mr. Blorp during lessons. The adults couldn't help but laugh, the sound causing several nearby windows to rattle sympathetically. Even the fire station's cat, which had been hiding under a desk since the aliens arrived, peeked out curiously. Mira looked at the bizarre but heartwarming scene before her, a family of aliens learning about human compassion in a New Jersey fire station, while their excited child rattled off statistics about emergency response protocols. Somehow, it felt exactly right. 2 weeks after the Great Crix adventure, as it became known in embassy circles, the Xandarian embassy hosted its first ever Earth First Responders Appreciation Gala. The event was notable for several reasons. It was the first time the embassy had voluntarily invited so many humans inside. It was the first diplomatic function that featured both quantum physics demonstrations and a fire truck parked in the garden. And it was definitely the first time the embassy's quantum probability field had to be adjusted to account for the presence of a Dalmatian. Ambassador Xylax stood at the podium, his eye stalks adorned with formal diplomatic gems, trying very hard not to float with excitement as he addressed the gathered crowd of firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and various emergency response personnel. "My dear Earth friends," he began, causing only minor vibrations in the champagne glasses, "recent events have led us to reevaluate our understanding of your species. We had always classified humans as, well, how do I put this diplomatically? Primitive chaos monkeys," suggested Lady Venna helpfully from her seat, her scales shimmering with amusement. "Yes, thank you," dear Xylax coughed. "But thanks to the actions of your first responders, and one very enlightening unauthorized field trip by our son." At this point, Crix, sitting in the front row next to Mira Patel, and wearing a miniature firefighter helmet custom-made to accommodate his eye stalks, tried to make himself invisible, literally. His mother quickly tapped his shoulder, reminding him about the no quantum phasing during formal events rule. We have come to understand that there are different kinds of advancement, different ways of measuring civilization. While we pride ourselves on our quantum technology and probability matrices, you have developed something perhaps even more remarkable: the capacity to help others without calculating the personal benefit ratio. The humans in the audience exchanged amused glances. Leave it to aliens to make basic human decency sound like an advanced evolutionary trait. Therefore, Xylax continued, "We are proud to announce the establishment of the Earth Xandar First Responder Exchange Program. Though we do request that your firefighters refrain from using their water hoses near our quantum computers, and perhaps we could discuss upgrading those hoses with some basic molecular restructuring capabilities." Mira Patel, trying not to laugh, gave a thumbs up from her seat. Next to her, Crix was excitedly showing off his latest project, a comprehensive database of every emergency vehicle siren pattern in New Jersey, complete with color-coded probability matrices of their effectiveness in different weather conditions. The event concluded with what the embassy's AI system later described in its report as organized chaos. The firefighters demonstrated their equipment carefully away from the quantum computers. Several police officers attempted to teach the embassy staff how to do proper siren sounds, resulting in some interesting temporal distortions, and Mr. Blorp, still traumatized from the whole experience, had to be talked down from the ceiling after someone accidentally set off a fire alarm. As the evening wound down, Chief Luna Martinez found herself standing next to Captain Blake Reynolds, watching Crix enthusiastically explain the concept of a fire drill to a group of fascinated alien diplomats. "You know," she mused, sipping what she hoped was regular Earth champagne, "when I signed up for the Force, I never thought I'd end up at an alien embassy watching a kid with 3 eye stalks teach quantum physicists about stop, drop, and roll." Blake grinned. "Just wait until next week." Crix convinced them to install a fire pole in the embassy. Apparently, he calculated that it's 47.3% more efficient than quantum teleportation for rapid descent. Plus, and I quote, way more fun. From somewhere in the embassy came the sound of Ambassador Xylax discovering that, yes, humans really did expect their firefighters to carry cats down from high places. Followed by Lady Vena's crystalline laughter, as their son proceeded to demonstrate proper cat rescue techniques using the embassy's newly installed practice ladder. Sometimes it turned out, the best diplomatic breakthroughs came not from careful negotiations or complex treaties, but from a child's simple appreciation of what it truly means to be a hero.